The fluorescent lights of the small grocery store buzzed faintly overhead as Ethan pushed the cart slowly down the aisle, his daughter Lily strapped snugly into the worn car seat balanced in the cart's basket. She cooed softly, her tiny fists batting at the air, unaware of the tight knot in her father's chest. Ethan glanced at her, managing a weary smile. "Almost done, baby girl. Just need your diapers, then we're out," he whispered. His shoes scuffed against the linoleum floor, his jeans a little too worn, his jacket thin against the early autumn chill outside. He stopped in front of the diaper shelves and stared at the rows of neatly stacked boxes, each one carrying a price tag that might as well have been a mountain. He rubbed his temple with a rough hand and sighed. He had already counted his money 3 times before leaving the apartment, a handful of crumpled bills and some loose coins he'd scraped together from under couch cushions and the bottom of drawers. Just enough for one small pack. Picking up the cheapest size that would fit Lily, he placed it gently into the cart beside her, careful not to wake her from her half-asleep state. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. He had skipped dinner, again, and tomorrow he would probably do the same. Food could wait, diapers couldn't. When he reached the checkout line, the store felt suddenly too bright, too crowded. A couple ahead of him piled steaks, snacks, and bottles of wine onto the belt, chatting idly about weekend plans. Behind him, a woman in a sharp blazer scrolled on her phone, sighing impatiently at the wait. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, bouncing on his heels, wishing the line would move faster. He didn't like people watching. He didn't like anyone seeing how close to the edge he was. Finally, it was his turn. He lifted the small pack of diapers onto the belt. That was all. One item. The cashier, a teenager with earbuds tucked discreetly under her hair, barely glanced at him as she scanned it. "That'll be $14.99, she said flatly. Ethan slid the crumpled bills forward, smoothing them out as if that might somehow make them look like enough. He counted the coins carefully, his fingers trembling slightly. He was short, only by a few cents, but short all the same. His heart sank. The cashier's brow furrowed. "You're a little off," she said, her voice carrying across the counter. Ethan's throat tightened. He pulled his wallet open again, but it was empty. He patted his pockets, checked again, as though a miracle quarter might suddenly appear. Nothing. Behind him, the woman in the blazer clicked her tongue, shifting impatiently. Just give me a second," Ethan muttered, his face burning. He glanced at Lily, who stirred in her seat, her lips pursing as though she might start to cry. The sound of her soft whimpers sliced through him like a knife. He couldn't go home without those diapers. He couldn't. His pride screamed at him to walk away, to save himself the humiliation, but his reality pressed harder. He swallowed hard and looked back at the cashier. "Can you, maybe take off $1? Or I could come back and pay the rest tomorrow. Please, I just need these for my daughter." The teenager's face was unreadable. "I can't do that, sir. Store policy." Someone behind him huffed loudly. "Come on, man, people got places to be." Ethan's hands shook as he reached for the diapers. "I'll just put them back then," he said quietly, his voice cracking. Each word tasted like failure. His vision blurred as he lifted the pack, intending to return it to the shelf. He hated himself in that moment, hated the feeling of not being enough for Lily, hated the weight of pitying stares digging into his back. As he turned, a tiny, soft cry came from the car seat. Lily's face, scrunched up, her cheeks reddening, her little body wriggling with discomfort. Ethan froze, the sound of her need breaking him apart. He bent over her quickly, whispering soothing nonsense, rocking the seat gently to calm her. He blinked hard, trying to keep the tears from spilling. Around him, the world moved impatiently, groceries bagged, customers shuffled, life went on. But for Ethan, everything had narrowed to this moment, this single humiliation. He stood there, shoulders slumped, clutching the pack of diapers against his chest, caught between walking out empty-handed or begging strangers for help. His pride told him he'd rather starve than beg. But Lily's cry told him he couldn't afford to choose pride. And so, with his last ounce of courage, he turned back toward the register, his lips parting as if to plead one more time. Ethan stood frozen in front of the register, the small pack of diapers clutched to his chest as if it were treasure. His lips parted, but the words refused to come. The cashier had already shifted her attention elsewhere, her expression impatient. The people behind him rustled, sighing loudly, one man muttering under his breath about wasting time. Shame pressed on Ethan like a physical weight. He felt the sting in his throat, the humiliation of having to choose between dignity and his daughter's comfort. Then, a voice, calm, steady, yet carrying an authority that cut through the hum of the store, spoke from behind him. "I'll pay for them." The sound was so unexpected that Ethan froze. Slowly, he turned his head and saw her. A woman, tall and poised, stepped forward. She wore a long, tailored coat the color of deep midnight, her hair neatly swept back. Everything about her presence suggested someone who didn't belong in a late-night grocery line with tired parents and students picking up cheap meals. But there she was, standing right behind him, her eyes fixed on him, not with judgment but with something gentler. Ethan blinked, his grip tightening on the diapers. "No, I can't let you do that," he stammered. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. "It's just diapers," she said softly. "And it's clearly for your little one. Please, let me." The cashier glanced up, finally interested, and shrugged. "Do you want me to ring it up with her card?" Ethan's pride screamed inside him. He had spent his whole life trying not to be a charity case, trying to prove to the world he could stand on his own 2 feet, especially after Lily's mother passed. He didn't want his daughter growing up thinking her father couldn't provide. Yet when he looked down at Lily's tiny face, red from her half-awake whimpers, his resistance cracked. She needed this more than he needed his pride. I don't know how to thank you," Ethan whispered, his voice almost breaking. The woman gave the faintest smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You don't need to. Just let me help." Before Ethan could protest again, she slid her black card across the counter. The cashier's eyes widened slightly at the sleek piece of plastic, tapping it quickly against the reader. The transaction was done in seconds. The pack of diapers was placed into a thin plastic bag, and the woman handed it back to Ethan as if the act were nothing at all. But to Ethan, it was everything. He fumbled for words, his throat dry. I don't take handouts. I work hard. He stopped, realizing how defensive he sounded, and shut his eyes for a moment. This means more than you know." Her expression softened again. For a fleeting second, her mask of corporate composure slipped, and something vulnerable flickered in her eyes. Loneliness, maybe, an ache he couldn't place. "You're not taking a handout," she said firmly. "You're a father, taking care of his daughter. That's nothing to be ashamed of." The words hit him harder than he expected. His shoulders slumped with relief, the tightness in his chest loosening just enough for him to breathe again. He looked down at Lily, now calmer, sucking softly on her fist, oblivious to the drama around her. Ethan wanted to ask this stranger why she cared. He wanted to understand what made her step in when no one else even paused. But he didn't know how to ask without sounding ungrateful. So instead, he nodded slowly. "Thank you, truly. I don't forget kindness like this." She nodded back, almost curtly, as though afraid of lingering too long in the moment. She seemed eager to retreat into her own world again, the one where people didn't see the cracks beneath her flawless exterior. But she didn't walk away. She hesitated, just slightly, her hand brushing the strap of her designer bag as if weighing whether to say something more. The cashier cleared her throat loudly. "Next customer." The spell broke. The line shuffled forward. The woman glanced at Ethan one last time before murmuring, "Take care of her." Ethan clutched the bag and the car seat, awkwardly maneuvering both as he nodded. "I will, always." He stepped aside, but the echo of her words stayed with him. There had been no pity in her tone, only a quiet sincerity that rattled him more than the act itself. He walked out into the cool night air, his breath visible under the streetlights. The plastic bag rustled in his hand, the weight of the diapers absurdly light compared to the heaviness in his chest. As he strapped Lily into the car, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. Who was she, really? Why did someone who looked like she could buy the whole store without blinking care enough to stop for a struggling father and his child? He whispered into the night, more to himself than anyone else, "Who are you?" And somewhere inside, he knew this wasn't the last time their paths would cross. The night after the grocery store encounter lingered in Ethan's mind like a dream he couldn't quite shake. He replayed the moment over and over, the sound of her voice, the calmness in her eyes, the way she said, "You're not taking a handout." It wasn't just the diapers. It was something about her presence, something that cut through the noise of his constant struggle and reached a part of him he thought had long been buried. The next morning, Ethan balanced Lily on one hip as he heated water for her formula. His apartment was small and sparse, but he kept it tidy. Toys were neatly stacked in a corner, second-hand furniture arranged carefully to make the place feel like a home rather than just a roof overhead. He hummed softly to Lily, but his mind drifted. He wished he had asked the woman's name. He wished he knew why she had looked at him as though she understood something about his pain. Across the city, in a high-rise that kissed the clouds, Claire sat at the edge of her polished glass desk. The early sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing her office in a golden glow. Yet the warmth didn't touch her. Her assistant rattled off updates for the day, but Claire barely listened. She had been thinking of him, the man from the grocery store, the baby with curious eyes, the desperation etched across his tired face. Claire had everything, or so people thought. Wealth, power, respect. She was a CEO of one of the largest firms in the city, her name whispered in business circles with a mix of admiration and envy. But when the boardroom lights dimmed and she returned to her penthouse, silence always greeted her. No laughter, no chatter, no one waiting. She had long buried the sting of loneliness under work, but seeing Ethan, raw and vulnerable, had shaken something loose inside her. She told herself it was nothing. A moment of compassion, nothing more. Yet as she tried to focus on quarterly reports, his voice echoed in her head, I don't take handouts. I work hard. There had been pride in him, the kind she respected. He wasn't broken, he was fighting, tooth and nail, for his child. And maybe that was why she couldn't stop thinking about him. Later that afternoon, Ethan bundled Lily into her stroller and headed to the park. He had a few hours before his evening shift at the diner, and he wanted Lily to have fresh air. The park was alive with children laughing, couples strolling, joggers pounding the paths. Ethan sat on a bench, rocking the stroller gently, watching Lily's eyes dart curiously at the colors and movement. Beautiful day, isn't it? The voice startled him. He turned, and his breath caught. Standing a few feet away was the woman from the grocery store. Claire. She wore a simple cream blouse and tailored slacks, her hair loose this time, softening her sharp features. She looked out of place among the casual crowd, yet somehow more approachable than she had in the store. You, Ethan said, half in disbelief. She smiled faintly. Me. I wasn't sure if I'd see you again. He shifted uncomfortably on the bench. I didn't expect to see you here at all. Do you live around here? Not exactly, she admitted, taking a seat beside him. I was, nearby. Thought I'd take a walk. Her eyes flickered to the stroller, where Lily gurgled happily. She's beautiful. Pride softened Ethan's tired features. Yeah, she's my whole world. Claire studied him for a moment. You're doing a good job. I can tell. He let out a humorless laugh. Doesn't feel like it most days. Feels like I'm barely holding everything together. But, she doesn't know that. She just looks at me like I can do anything. His voice cracked slightly, and he cleared his throat. That's why I can't fail her. Something in Claire's chest tightened. She had heard countless speeches in boardrooms, seen leaders boast about achievements, but none of it compared to the quiet conviction in Ethan's words. He wasn't speaking of ambition or power, he was speaking of love. A love she had never known. I didn't mean to embarrass you last night, she said softly. I just couldn't watch you walk away empty-handed. Not when I could help. He glanced at her, searching her face. Why? People don't usually stop. Most pretend they don't see. Her lips parted, but she hesitated. How could she explain that his struggle mirrored the emptiness she carried, though in a different form? That she saw in him the courage to fight for something she had never had. Finally, she said, because I know what it's like to need something you can't get. Even if my circumstances were different. The honesty in her tone caught him off guard. He wanted to ask more, to understand what she meant, but Lily fussed in her stroller, pulling his attention. He bent down, soothing her gently, and when he looked up, Claire was watching with an intensity that made him shift. Listen, she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a sleek business card. If you ever need anything, not charity, but an opportunity, call me. I run a company. We always need hardworking people. Ethan stared at the card, hesitant. His instinct told him to refuse, to protect his pride. But her eyes, steady, kind, told him this wasn't pity. This was respect. He slowly took the card, tucking it into his jacket. I don't know if I'll ever call. But, thank you, for treating me like more than a charity case. Claire gave a small smile. You're not. Don't forget that. And as she stood to leave, Ethan felt the strangest pull in his chest, a sense that their meeting was more than coincidence, more than kindness. It was the start of something neither of them fully understood yet. The days after the park encounter blurred into a cycle of exhaustion for Ethan. He worked double shifts at the diner, rushed home to feed Lily, then collapsed into bed for a few stolen hours of sleep before doing it all again. Yet, through the haze of fatigue, one detail never left his mind, the business card tucked into his jacket pocket. He had looked at it more times than he cared to admit. Claire Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Enterprises. The name was bold, the card heavy in his hands, a weight far beyond its size. Each time he considered calling, his pride stopped him. What if she expected him to grovel? What if her offer had only been polite words meant to soften his embarrassment? No, he told himself. He would make it on his own. But that resolve grew harder to maintain. Rent was due, Lily's formula was running low. And when the diner cut his hours without warning, Ethan realized he had no choice left. One gray morning, heart pounding, he stood outside the towering glass skyscraper with Lily's photo tucked in his wallet like a talisman. He felt small, out of place among the steady flow of professionals in tailored suits. But he forced himself through the revolving doors, gripping Claire's card so tightly the edges bent. At the reception desk, he cleared his throat. I'm here to see Claire Whitmore. She asked me to come. The receptionist, polished and efficient, looked him up and down, clearly skeptical of the man in a faded jacket and scuffed shoes. But when she saw the card in his hand, her demeanor shifted. One moment, she made a quick call, then nodded. Take the elevator to the top floor. The ride up was nerve-wracking. Ethan's reflection in the mirrored walls revealed every insecurity, his unshaven jaw, his weary eyes, the calluses on his hands. What was he doing here? This was a world he didn't belong in. Yet when the doors opened, he had no choice but to step out. Claire's office was as breathtaking as it was intimidating, with walls of glass offering a panoramic view of the city below. She stood near the window, her figure silhouetted by sunlight. When she turned, her face lit with surprise, genuine, not rehearsed. You came, she said softly. Ethan shifted uneasily. I almost didn't, but I couldn't keep ignoring it. He hesitated, then added, I don't want handouts. If you've got work, real work, I'll take it. I just need a chance. Claire studied him for a long moment. Most people entered her office asking for favors, partnerships, money. Ethan stood before her asking only for dignity. Something inside her ached at the honesty in his voice. I don't offer pity, she said firmly. I offer opportunities. And I meant what I said in the park, I need people who work hard. People I can trust. She motioned to a chair. Ethan sat, his nerves jangling. She began asking about his skills, where he had worked before, what he knew how to do. He told her about years of construction work, about fixing anything with his hands, about managing long hours while raising Lily alone. His words weren't polished, but they were real. Claire listened intently, something unusual for her. She was used to filtering through polished resumes and rehearsed pitches. But Ethan's raw honesty, his determination to keep going no matter how hard life hit him, held more weight than all the fancy words she'd ever heard. Finally, she leaned forward. I have a position open in our facilities department. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and it pays better than what you're making now. More importantly, it comes with health benefits, for both you and your daughter. Ethan's breath caught. Health benefits, security, stability, it was more than he had dared hope for. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say yes, she replied with a small smile. His eyes burned, but he nodded. Yes, thank you. For the first time in months, Ethan felt hope stir in his chest. As their meeting wound down, Claire walked him to the elevator herself, something she rarely did. You're not alone in this anymore, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw past the polished CEO. He saw the loneliness in her eyes, the ache she hid behind perfect composure. And in that moment, he realized she needed something too, connection, meaning, perhaps even family. He offered a small, grateful smile. Neither are you. The doors closed between them, but the words hung in the air, binding them in a way neither had expected. What had begun with a pack of diapers was no longer about survival. It was the fragile beginning of something deeper. Two lives, once worlds apart, slowly weaving together into a story neither could have written alone.